So, Rod, the question here is the dichotomy. Here we have in Sarasota a whole conference with some of the greatest experts in Florida talking about what's happening in our community now and what we need to do to protect our community in the future from sea level rise. But you have the President of the United States and the Governor of Florida basically seemingly deny the existence of what we're having a conference about.
Well, I think here's the problem. From my point of view, both political and as an observer of this, but not as a scientist. And that is that we can look at the data, we can see, you know, how much global warming is going on, how fast it's going on. We can have a conversation later about, you know, the accuracy of the models and predictions and that sort of thing. And so you can look at that. That's pretty easy to measure. I think where a lot of people start getting skittish about it is how much of this is you know, anthropogenic. How much of it is caused by man? And to me, while it's easy to say that's settled science, that's done, we all know that's the case and all, some of the data, to me, just looking at it, again, as a person, makes me question that. And the number of scandals that have gone on, which we can talk about, but the number of scandals that have gone on from emails and others within the climate scientist community gives people like me pause to say, can we trust the data or not? Or is there something more at work on this issue than just science? If it was just science, we'd all feel more comfortable.
Frank, I wanted to pick up where we left off. Rod, you were making the point when people who believe or are concerned about climate change bring up the fact that 93% of scientists concur.
Right. There's a very famous stat out there that says 97% of scientists agree that there's global warming that's man-caused. And I think it's the second part where there's a lot of disagreement on that. So there was a study that was done, it was published last year in the Journal of Science and Education by 5 climate scientologists that looked at the base studies that were included in Mr. Cook's report there, and they found only 41 of the 11,944 published climate studies examined by the author explicitly stated mankind caused the global warming since 1950. So their point is that those numbers have been fudged just like a lot of other numbers have been fudged.
David?
It's just not true. And over the break, I invited him to come to a climate science meeting where national or international meeting, we're not discussing the kind of things you're discussing. That journal you refer to, I'm sorry, but I've never heard of it before. It's not a well-known or well-respected journal in science.
So one thing I would ask you then...
That's what I want you to do, is go out to my community of climate change scientists and ask a bunch of us. We're not discussing these things. This is not something that we're concerned about it politically.
Here's the deal. The rest of the country is discussing these things, though, and the rest of the country is going to be what drives the politics of it. So when you had the Climate Gate email scandal from the University out of England, where it was revealed that there were serious ongoing attempts to cook the books to make the data show more global warming than there had been, that sort of thing, plus other scandals that have erupted around it, put into question the veracity of the data and the climate scientists, and there is a fear that a lot of climate scientists are becoming more activists than scientists, and at that point they really can't be trusted as scientists, not personally here.
Rod, I'm wondering what your take is. As a former journalist, you are so often on as president of the Sarasota Republican Club, I don't know if people realize that you were a reporter for many, many years. So when you hear about the new administration shutting down the EPA's webpage on climate change, and EPA staffers saying, look, if this goes dark, years of our work will just disappear. As a journalist, that must bother you in some way.
Yeah, shutting it down seems to me to be an absurd step to take. I would say I might suggest an overall review of the numbers and the data and include people, even some that are skeptics, that are out there that are skeptics, bring them on, have a review of it that way. But what that reflects, Alan, is going back to, you remember when U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch was testifying before Congress, and she was saying that the Justice Department was investigating whether they could sue people who questioned whether global warming was man-caused or not, scientists and others who questioned it, which sent up all sorts of red flags. But what it shows is how dramatically politicized this issue is.
They just don't vote on the basis of climate change. It's other things.
No, matter of fact, the first thing they'll usually vote on is going to be pocketbook, and the second thing is national security. Those two things are almost always going to drive top-end voting for president and probably for senators and congressmen and all. And so you know, there's a lot of other important issues out there, and they really are rarely the ones that will drive a vote.
Welcome back. It's time for final thoughts, and we want to do this from the perspective of each and every one of yours specialty. So, Rod, I'm gonna talk to you because we're hearing both sides of this conversation. What do you want people to take away from it?
Well, really, what I'd like people to take away from it is encouraging maybe the scientific community to try and improve their credibility with the broad range of American people. Right now, it's become so politicized, and there's so many questions about the data itself and what it really means and what it's really causing, that I think it's up to, in a sense, up to the scientific community to sort of clean house. They've had some scandals, to sort of put those things behind them and say, okay, we're all coming together here. This is the bottom line. You can trust this. I'm not sure how they get there, but I think that if we don't get that step, I think there's going to be a real problem getting a broad swath of the American people to really trust it enough to make dramatic changes.
I think we need to lead the conversation. Republicans right now are favoring putting a tax on carbon, putting a price on carbon, and that's an extremely effective way of reducing our carbon use.
We have less than a minute, but Rod, do you see Republicans agreeing to put a tax on carbon?
Not en masse, no. There would be a few here and there that have come out in favor of it on and off, but the party as a whole is not going to, because I think that what you see is that would be a huge anchor, chain and ball on the economy and on jobs.
I don't know if we solved anything tonight, but at least we talked about it. Gentlemen, thank you.